Outlander Season 8 Episode 1 just dropped. And I need to talk about it right now because this episode is not what I expected. And I mean that in the best, most overwhelming, completely unprepared way possible. I have been waiting for this premiere. For months, I have watched every trailer, read every synopsis, followed every cast interview. And still, Episode 1 managed to hit differently than anything I had built up in my head. Because this isn't just a season premiere, this is the opening chapter of the final goodbye to one of the greatest love stories ever told on television. And from the very first scene, Outlander Season 8 Episode 1 makes absolutely certain that you understand exactly what is at stake. Everything, absolutely everything is at stake. So let's get into it properly because there is a lot happening in this episode and every single piece of it deserves attention. The episode picks up with Jaime and Claire Fraser finally making their way back to Fraser's Ridge. After years consumed by the American Revolution, years of war, survival, bloodshed, and chaos that tested them in ways that would have destroyed any ordinary couple 100 times over, and yet here they are, still standing, still choosing each other, still moving forward together through a world that has never once made that easy for them. And as they ride back toward the ridge, toward the life they built with their own hands in the Carolina wilderness, there is this beautiful and deeply complicated mixture of relief and apprehension radiating off both of them that Sam Heughan and Catriona Balfe convey without a single word of dialogue, just to people carrying years of weight, riding towards something they love, and quietly sensing that nothing is going to be as simple as they hoped because Fraser's Ridge has changed. That is the first thing Episode 1 establishes, and it establishes it with an honesty that is almost uncomfortable to sit with. The official Season 8 synopsis puts it plainly: with new arrivals and changes made during their years away, the Frasers are confronted with the question of what they are willing to sacrifice. For the place they call home, the settlement has grown, new faces have appeared, decisions were made in their absence that they had no say in. The community that bears their name and runs on their legacy has been quietly evolving without them, developing its own rhythms and its own momentum, and walking back into that, being the person a place is named after, but no longer perfectly shaped around, carries a specific kind of loneliness that Episode 1 refuses to gloss over. It sits with it, it lets it breathe, and it makes you feel every inch of it alongside Claire and Jaime in a way that is genuinely moving. But the synopsis doesn't stop there. And this is where Episode 1 starts to reveal its darker architecture. Because beyond the surface complications of a changed home and new faces, something far more threatening is already forming beneath the warmth of the homecoming. Family secrets, long buried and carefully hidden, are beginning to push their way toward the surface. And the synopsis is chillingly specific about this. These secrets are not coming from outside enemies, or political rivals, or the violence of a new nation finding its shape. They are coming from inside, from within the family itself. From the places Jaime and Claire thought were settled, resolved, understood. And Episode 1 begins laying that groundwork with a quiet, surgical precision that rewards every viewer paying close attention. Nothing is accidental. Every scene is carrying more information than it appears to. Every small moment is a thread connected to something larger that is going to unravel before the season is finished. Now let me give you the full picture of what this episode is working with structurally. Because understanding the scope of Season 8 makes every creative choice in Episode 1 hit significantly harder. This final season is 10 episodes. That is the entirety of what we have left with these characters, this world, this story. Co-showrunner Matthew B. Roberts has been direct and consistent about how the writers approached that limitation. Every plot line, every character moment, every scene that survived the cut had to connect directly back to Jaime and Claire. His exact framing was that it has got to affect Jaime and Claire. That discipline is visible in Episode 1 from start to finish. Nothing here is filler. Nothing is decoration. Every conversation, every reunion, every quiet beat between characters is doing real work, building towards something, revealing something, setting up something that is going to matter deeply before these 10 episodes are done. Season 8 draws primarily from Diana Gabaldon's 8th novel written in my own heart's blood, but Roberts has confirmed the writers are also weaving in elements from other parts of the larger saga. With Book 9 already published and Book 10 still forthcoming, the writing room has given itself permission to pull threads from across the entire scope of the story, which means book readers will find moments that feel familiar alongside surprises they genuinely did not see coming. And Episode 1 already has both moments that land exactly where devoted readers expected them to, and moments that make even the most well-read Outlander fan lean forward and wonder where exactly this is going. That balance, honoring the source material while refusing to be completely predictable, is one of the things this episode gets exactly right, and in a final season, with an audience this passionate and this knowledgeable. Getting that balance right is no small achievement, but let's be honest about something. This homecoming, as beautiful as it is, was never going to be simple, not for the Frasers, it never is. Because the ridge that Jaime and Claire left behind wasn't frozen in time, waiting patiently for their return. Life moved forward without them. People made choices without them, and now they're walking back into a world that bears their name, carries their legacy, but has been quietly reshaping itself in ways they didn't expect and weren't prepared for. And episode 1 sits with that discomfort in a way that feels deeply honest. It doesn't rush past the awkwardness of it. It doesn't pretend that returning home after years of war and revolution is as simple as walking through a familiar door. It lets you feel how strange it is to come back to a place you love and realize it no longer perfectly fits the shape you left it in. And that emotional complexity is what has always separated Outlander from every other period drama on television. It's never just about the costumes, never just about the stunning Scottish landscapes or the lush Carolina wilderness. It's about people, real, flawed, fiercely loving people trying to hold onto each other in a world that keeps throwing everything it has at them. Episode 1 of Season 8 understands this completely. Every scene is built around that emotional core. Every plot point circles back to the same fundamental question. What does home actually mean when home is not a place but the people standing next to you? And for Jaime and Claire, that question has never felt more urgent than it does right now, in the final chapter of their story. Now, the ridge itself deserves a mention here because visually and atmospherically, it looks absolutely stunning this season. There's a richness to it, a fullness that reflects how much this community has grown. You can see in the details, the expanded buildings, the new faces moving through familiar spaces, the sense of a living, breathing settlement that has roots now. It's not the rough frontier outpost it once was. It has history carved into it. It has the blood and sweat of everyone who built it together. And walking back into that as Jaime and Claire, with fresh eyes after everything they've witnessed in the revolution, must feel overwhelming in the most complicated way. Pride mixed with displacement, love mixed with the quiet grief of time lost. Episode 1 captures all of that without ever needing to spell it out in dialogue. You just feel it radiating off the screen. And then there are the other characters. Because as much as this show belongs to Jaime and Claire, the world around them is rich and full and impossible to ignore. The McKenzie family is back, and Roger and Brianna bring their own version of that complicated homecoming energy. These two have had one of the most turbulent journeys of any couple in the show's history. And that's saying something, considering the competition. But there's something different about them in episode 1, a settledness, a quiet confidence that wasn't always there in earlier seasons. Like they've finally found their footing, and yet, even in that relative stability, you can sense that the show isn't done putting them through it. Because no one on Fraser's Ridge gets to stay comfortable for long. That's practically a rule at this point. Sophie Skelton and Richard Rankin have grown so much in these roles over the seasons. And episode 1 gives them moments that remind you just how far Brianna and Roger have come. There's a warmth between them that feels genuinely earned, not the electric, turbulent passion of Jaime and Claire, but something steadier, a partnership built out of shared trauma and shared survival. And there are whispers, very loud whispers, that their family might be growing this season. Sophie Skelton herself practically confirmed it in the most delightful way when she talked about how much fun she had wearing the pregnancy prosthetics, and basically volunteered to do it again. So if you've been hoping for more McKenzie family joy this season, episode 1 plants seeds that suggest you might just get it. And honestly, after everything Roger and Brianna have been through, they deserve something beautiful. And then there's the moment. The one that broke the internet before the season even officially premiered. The one that has had every single Outlander fan, I know, absolutely spiraling in the best possible way. If you watched the trailer for episode 1, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you somehow missed it, let me paint the picture for you, because this moment is everything. The teaser closes on what looks like a calm, intimate scene between Jaime and Claire. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just two people who love each other existing in the quiet comfort of each other's company. And then, out of nowhere, a voice comes from off-screen, 2 words, just to Mrs. Fraser. And Claire's entire face changes in an instant. The warmth drains out, the calm shatters, and she looks stunned. Completely and utterly stunned in a way that goes beyond simple surprise. This is recognition. This is someone from her past walking back into her present. And the second that trailer dropped, every corner of the Outlander fandom lit up like a firework. Because those 2 words carry so much weight. Think about it, Mrs. Fraser isn't just a name. It's an identity. It's everything Claire has chosen and fought for and sacrificed to become. And whoever is saying it from off-screen knows her by that name, which means they know her story. Or at least part of it. They know where she belongs and the way Claire reacts. That particular mixture of shock and something deeper, something almost like disbelief, tells you immediately that this isn't just any voice. This is someone she thought was gone. Someone she never expected to see standing in front of her again. And in a show built on the impossible becoming possible. In a universe where time travel is real and death has proven itself to be surprisingly negotiable. That opens up a door of possibilities that is genuinely dizzying to stare into. So let's talk theories, because the fandom has been running wild and honestly, some of these ideas are absolutely fascinating. The most popular theory making the rounds right now, and the one I personally find most compelling, is that the voice belongs to Henry Beauchamp, Claire's father. Now, if you've been following the prequel series Blood of My Blood, you already have a much richer picture of who Henry was as a person: warm, intelligent, deeply loving, a man who would have done anything for his daughter. In Claire's timeline, Henry died years ago in a car crash, a tragedy that shaped her entire life and that she has carried with her through every version of herself across every century she's lived in. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets genuinely exciting. We are talking about a show where time travel is not a fantasy element, it is a narrative reality. It is a tool the story uses with intention and consequence, and if Henry somehow found the stones, if he somehow made the leap, if he somehow crossed through time searching for the daughter he lost, that reunion would be one of the most emotionally devastating and beautiful moments this show has ever produced, full stop. And it wouldn't even come out of nowhere. The groundwork is already there. The prequel series exists precisely to deepen our understanding of Claire's origins, her parents, the life she came from before the Ridge, before Jaime, before all of it. Bringing Henry into the final season of Outlander would create a narrative bridge between Blood of My Blood and the main series that feels earned and purposeful. It would mean that Claire's story, which has always been about love and loss, and the impossible lengths people go to for the people they cherish, comes full circle in the most complete way possible. The little girl who lost her father becomes the woman who somehow gets to see him one more time. I'm not crying, you're crying. Actually, we're both crying. Let's just agree on that and move on. Now, there's another theory floating around that points to Julia, Claire's mother, and honestly, the more I think about it, the more I can't completely dismiss it. Julia's story in the prequel is heartbreaking and incomplete in ways that feel deliberate, like the show left threads there on purpose, knowing they'd be picked up eventually. If Julia also had the ability to travel through time, if she too found her way to the stones before her death, the implications for Claire's entire understanding of her own history would be catastrophic in the most compelling sense of the word, because it wouldn't just be a reunion. It would be a complete rewriting of everything Claire thinks she knows about where she came from and why. And Outlander has always been at its most powerful when it takes the thing a character believes to be a fixed, settled truth and quietly, devastatingly pulls it apart. The weaker theories, and I say this with genuine affection for the creativity of this fandom, point to Lord John Grey or William, Jaime's son, and look, I understand the logic. Both characters have earned significant screen time and emotional investment over the course of the series. A surprise reappearance from either of them would not be out of place in a final season. That's clearly pulling out all the stops, but here's my issue with both. Claire's reaction, that reaction is too specific, too layered. It isn't simply surprise at seeing someone she didn't expect. It's something older and deeper than that. It's the kind of reaction you have when someone walks through a door that you believed, with absolute certainty, could never open again. And that particular flavor of disbelief points much more clearly toward someone from her past, rather than someone from Jaime's story. But let's pull back from the theories for a moment, because as delicious as they are, Episode 1 is carrying another storyline that has been living rent-free in my head since the Season 7 finale dropped and absolutely refused to let me go. And if you were watching that finale with the same level of obsessive attention that I was, you already know exactly what I'm about to say. Faith Fraser, the daughter that Claire and Jaime lost, the baby girl who was supposed to have died at birth in Paris all those seasons ago. In one of the most heartbreaking episodes this show has ever produced, that loss has been sitting at the very center of Claire and Jaime's story for years now. A wound that never fully healed, a grief that never fully left. And then Season 7 came along and dropped a cliffhanger that made every single one of us sit straight up and stare at our screens with our mouths open. Because suddenly, the possibility was there. Quietly, terrifyingly, beautifully there. What if Faith didn't actually die? What if that loss, which has defined so much of who Claire and Jaime are, wasn't what they were told it was. I cannot overstate how much that question has consumed me. And based on every comment section and fan forum, I've spent entirely too much time reading. I am very far from alone in that. The Faith storyline has always been one of the most emotionally loaded threads in all of Outlander. From the moment we met her, briefly, devastatingly, in that Paris hospital, she became a presence in the show that was bigger than her screen time. She became the shape of a grief that Jaime and Claire carried in silence for years. The child they never got to know, the life that was taken before it really began. And if Season 8 is about to tell us that she survived, that she is real and living, and somewhere out there in the world, the emotional weight of that revelation will be unlike anything this show has ever asked its audience to carry before, and here is what makes it even more urgent. Co-showrunner Matthew B. Roberts has specifically promised that this mystery will be addressed visually and addressed early, right at the start of Season 8. Not buried in the middle of the season. Not saved for a finale twist, early. Which means Episode 1 and the episodes immediately following it are going to start pulling on that thread in a way that is going to demand everything from us emotionally. Roberts understands what this storyline means to the audience. He understands that after more than a decade of following these characters, the fans deserve answers that are given with care and weight and intention. And everything about the way he's talked about it suggests that's exactly what we're going to get, which is both thrilling and absolutely terrifying in equal measure. Because think about what it would mean for Claire specifically. This is a woman who has survived things that should have destroyed her. She has lost people across centuries, rebuilt herself from nothing more times than any one person should ever have to. But the loss of Faith has always been different. It was the loss she couldn't fix, couldn't fight, couldn't time travel her way back from. It happened before she understood the full scope of what she was capable of, before she had the knowledge and the power and the agency she developed over the course of the series. And she has carried that helplessness with her ever since, underneath everything else. In the quiet moments when the fighting stops and the grief gets loud, if Faith is alive, if that helplessness was built on a lie, Claire's entire emotional architecture gets shaken to its foundation, and watching Catriona Balfe play that realization, whenever it fully lands, is going to be one of the greatest performances of this entire series. I am already absolutely certain of that. I remember what it felt like to discover this show, to fall headfirst into this world and these characters and this love story that felt unlike anything else on television. There was something about Jaime and Claire from the very first episode that felt different. Not just romantic, though it was absolutely that, but something deeper. Something that felt true in a way that great storytelling occasionally manages to feel true. Like it was tapping into something real about what love actually is and what it actually costs and what it actually asks of the people brave enough to choose it. Over the years, through every season, every heartbreak, every impossible obstacle this show threw at them, that feeling never went away. If anything, it grew, it deepened. It became something I genuinely treasure in the way you treasure stories that have shaped how you see the world. And now here we are, the final season. 10 episodes to close the book on a story that has spanned centuries, continents, wars, and lifetimes. 10 episodes to answer the questions that have been keeping us up at night. 10 episodes to say goodbye to characters who feel less like fictional creations and more like people we actually know. People we've actually worried about and celebrated and grieved alongside. For over a decade, and Episode 1 carries all of that on its shoulders with a grace and an emotional intelligence that genuinely moved me. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel desperate. It feels like a story that knows exactly where it's going and is taking you there with intention and care and deep respect for the audience that has stayed with it all this way. The production quality this season is stunning. Filming wrapped back in September 2024. With additional reshoots completed shortly after. Sam Heughan confirmed earlier this year that his final ADR sessions are fully locked, which means everything is finished, everything is ready. And what we're watching is the complete and final vision of this story exactly as the creators intended it to be seen. There is something both comforting and quietly devastating about knowing that. Comforting because it means the story is whole, devastating because it means it's also finished. There is no more after this. What we have is what we have. And Episode 1 makes you feel both of those truths simultaneously in a way that is almost unbearable in the most beautiful sense of the word. Because that's what Outlander has always done best. It has always made you feel things that are almost too big to fit inside a single moment. Joy and grief at the same time. Hope and fear sharing the same breath. Love that is so fierce and so hard, one that watching it almost hurts. Episode 1 of the final season is all of that. Concentrated and clarified and delivered with the full force of everything This show has built over 8 seasons and more than a decade of storytelling. It is a beginning that feels like a gift. And it is an ending that has barely even started yet but is already, somehow, breaking my heart in the most extraordinary way. So here is what I want to say to every single person who has been on this journey, who stayed through the rough seasons, and the slow episodes and the moments where the show didn't quite land the way you hoped. Who came back every time anyway because Jaime and Claire pulled you back. Because this world pulled you back. Because some stories just get into your blood and refuse to leave. This final season is for you. Episode 1 makes that absolutely clear. And if the rest of the season delivers on the promise of this opening chapter, and everything I've seen and read and felt suggests it will, then we are about to witness something genuinely special. A finale worthy of one of the greatest love stories television has ever told. We only get one ending. And this one is shaping up to be everything. Now I want to hear from you. What was your reaction to episode 1? Who do you think that voice belongs to at the end of that trailer? And are you ready to say goodbye to Fraser's Ridge? Drop everything in the comments below because I read every single one and I want to know exactly how you're feeling right now. If this video connected with you, hit that like button because it genuinely helps more fans find this content. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a weekly Outlander breakdown as this final season unfolds episode by episode, because we are in this together all the way to the very last frame, and I wouldn't want to watch it with anyone else.